Now we swim in the ocean of feedback, whether at school, from our teachers or peers, at home, from our in-laws or mother-in-laws, or at workplace, from our boss or a colleague sitting across. We are constantly delivering or receiving feedback. And there's a profound challenge to be at the receiving end, whether good or bad, right or wrong, flippant, caring, or callous. Interestingly, when we deliver feedback, we notice that the receiver is not good at receiving it. And when we receive feedback, we notice that the giver is not good at giving it. To help us come out of this conundrum, today we have three legendary panelists with me. Let me first introduce Toastmaster Aruna Saraogi. Toastmaster Aruna Saraogi is a result-driven professional with over 15 years of rich experience in the areas of counseling and hypnotherapy. She is a certified rehabilitation psychologist with proficiency in career counseling, cognitive behavioral therapy, transactional analysis, and hypnotherapy. Secondly, we have Toastmaster Neha Navlakha Gaggar, a chartered accountant pursuing her independent practice of soft skills training. She is an avid reader, a speaker. She loves traveling, meeting new people, and of course, Toastmasters. Number three is Toastmaster Gaurav Jain, a chartered accountant by qualification, a businessman by profession, and a Toastmaster by passion. He's an avid reader and bibliophile. He says that if I have any more time left in my life, I want to become a librarian. Ladies and gentlemen, I request you to kindly write your questions in the chat box. We shall take up questions either in the middle or at the end of the session. With this, let me first start with Toastmaster Gaurav. Toastmaster Gaurav, in Toastmasters, we give more importance to giving feedback. What, according to you, is the key? The giver or the receiver?
First of all, thank you so much, Toastmaster Shomindu, for making me part of this session today. Now, I believe the ideal ratio is somewhere between 75 and 25. 25% responsibility lies with the feedback giver, because at the very least, you need a competent person to give the feedback, right? So let's say if I give you, doctor, a feedback on a medical procedure, or you give me a feedback on a financial report, then that's a mismatch worse than the Donald Trump marriage, right? So once you have this bare minimum criteria met, 75% of the onus, I think, lies with the feedback receiver, because it's up to the feedback receiver to identify the golden nuggets, the ideas in the feedback, and implement them for his improvement. Just to clarify on this further, I would like to give an example from my personal experience. Right since my CC5, I have been told that I should work on my voice modulation. I should improve my voice modulation in my speech. And in the absence of my mentor, let me tell you, I haven't worked on it as hard as I should. And the result is for all of you to see. I continue to receive the exact same feedback in all my speeches that I should work on my voice modulation. I should work on my voice modulation. And I think it's about time now that I work on it. So if I do not work on the feedback that I receive, then no matter how hard the feedback giver pushes, I'm not going to magically imbibe this trait. So definitely, yeah, I think it's the feedback receiver who is the key.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Gaurav. It means that pull is more important than push.
Definitely.
Okay, coming to Toastmaster Neha. Doesn't it seems quite weird that We as human beings are wired for learning from our infancy to adulthood. Yet learning about ourselves can be so painful. At times, receiving feedback feels less like a gift of learning and more like colonoscopy. Do you think receiving feedback is a skill that can be learned, and what are its benefits?
Good morning, Doctor. Good morning, everyone. And thank you so much, Toastmaster Somendu, for having me in the panel discussion. Well, feedback is something which is just like breathing. We do it every day, right? Almost no day is without giving or receiving feedback. Now, we human beings are basically wired to learn, to grow. There's a drive, inner drive to keep learning and keep growing. And so receiving feedback is very important for us so that we keep learning. However, what happens is there is also this another major longing to be accepted for who we are, right? Now, when I say, oh, you're great, it's like, yes, I'm accepted for who I am. But when I say, oh, why don't you put the towel, why do you keep putting the towel on the bed? Why don't you do this that way? For example, a parent keeps telling the child that do it, you know, you're not doing it right. You should come home by this time always, or whatever it is. And there is this thing that there is this mindset that you are not accepting me for who I am, right? So when we are at the receiving end, then there is this battle inside us that one is, are you accepting me for who I am? Or one is my drive to learn. So when there is this battle, then receiving feedback can seem a tough task. And I believe that, and also the experts, they believe that receiving feedback is not something which you cannot learn. It is a skill, just like the skill of cooking, the skill of public speaking, the skill of maybe painting. Receiving feedback also, if you apply certain scientific techniques, if you follow a very well thought of process, you can get better in it. There are certain steps and there is a certain level of awareness that you have to do. For example, if I tell you, let's say in Toastmasters, we keep saying, if you see an icebreaker, right? In an icebreaker, we know that the person needs to, there's a longing in that person to feel accepted in Toastmasters, right? So we are like, oh, you were great. It didn't seem like an icebreaker. But as the person moves on to the advanced level, we shift the frequency and we give more detailed feedback. So there has to be a balance, of course, from the giver's end as well as the receiver's end. But overall, I think it is definitely a skill which we can learn, which we can practice more. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Neha. It seems we need a balance. We have this drive for learning as well as a longing for acceptance, and we need to balance these two somewhere. Now coming to our third panelist, Toastmaster Aruna. Toastmaster Aruna, most of us are just fine with positive feedback, though at times it may feel that whether that feedback was genuine or not. But then there are tougher stuffs, like that leaves us flustered, flabbergasted, and then confused, enraged. Do you think there are some feedback triggers? And how can we identify those triggers?
You're not audible.
Master Aruna, you are not audible.
Am I audible now?
Yeah.
Okay. Good morning, Toastmasters and guests. Thank you, Doctor, for having me as one of the panelists. Yes, I would like to speak about the triggers, but first of all, I would like to talk about the positive feedback. Not all people, can take positive feedback positively. The reason behind is multiple. People, they have a low self-esteem and a low self-concept about themselves, and due to which, they have trouble accepting, hearing to the praises And on the extreme end, it can be imposter syndrome, where a person just cannot accept their skills, abilities, and they have a persistent fear that they might come out to be called as a fraud. And negative self-concept can lead to defense mechanisms like compensation, reaction formation, and people might not recognize it, but they are dismissing positive feedback because it acts like a trigger for them. At the same time, when they receive tough feedback, know what happens? It creates anxiety within them. Their heart pounds, their stomach aches, clenches, the thoughts race. They just can't think, they can't learn, so they defend. But there are 3 triggers. So one is the truth trigger. And the truth trigger is set off by the substance of the feedback itself. Like in Toastmasters, if some person says that your speech was not well researched, but the person has researched before speaking, so that can be a truth trigger for the person. Then the second one is the relationship trigger. In what happens in a relationship trigger, the person is triggered but by not the content, but the person who speaks. The relationship with the person really creates a havoc, and it creates a trigger in the person. Like the person does not accept what feedback he receives from the other person. It generally happens when you receive a feedback from your mother-in-law, if you don't have a cordial relationship with your mother-in-law. So the same feedback, if you receive from your mother, you'll readily accept it. But if it is your mother-in-law speaking it, it can act as a trigger. And the third is the identity trigger. The identity trigger is the story we tell ourselves about about ourselves. Like if Asta is said that she's a grammar Nazi in our Toastmasters club, but if we tell her that you had some problem with your grammar today, Asta, it might act as a trigger for her. So these are the 3 types of triggers which create havoc in a person.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Aruna. That means there are 3 types of triggers. One is truth trigger, one is identity trigger, and the third is relationship trigger. So moving forward, Toastmaster Neha, we give evaluations in Toastmasters. Do you think that evaluation and feedback are synonymous, or evaluation is a part of feedback?
Now come to think about it. So broadly, there are these 3 kinds of feedback that we keep playing with almost every day, which can be classified as appreciation, coaching, and evaluation, right? But more than often, we are not really aware of the differentiation. So let us discuss about it. The first one is appreciation, which we long for, right? That you were great, it was fantastic, all of that. For example, in Toastmasters, when we deliver a speech, what almost all the members who are not our mentors and evaluators, the general members, they keep maybe texting us, or in face-to-face meeting, they keep telling us, oh, Toastmaster, you were great, your speech was very nice today. A general comment, right? A general appreciation, maybe from Toastmasters, maybe from our parents, from our supervisors, so on and so forth. And then we have coaching, where there is this process where one person is really guiding the other person how to get better in something. For example, in Toastmasters, the mentor really coaches the mentee, right? That this is your speech, but these are the pointers where you can work upon, try to work on these. These are my suggestions. Let's work on this, right? Or the mother-in-law trains the daughter-in-law. The manager trains the executive. Then we have evaluation, where, now this is very important. We have the evaluation where I'm told that this is where you stand, right? For example, in Toastmasters, the evaluator says that this is, in Toastmasters, actually, there's a mix. The evaluator does the role of a mix of evaluation and a little bit of coaching again. But firstly, it said that this is where you stand, right? For example, when we receive a report card, the first thing that we go and check is how much did I score Then I see the comments that these are the comments where I can do better. Now what happens is, more than often there is a sort of cross transaction. I am looking for one kind of feedback, but I end up receiving something else. Let me give you an example. So one fine day, from suo moto, I did all the preparations for dinner after my marriage. And then I was very excited. I thought, my mother-in-law will come and she will really praise me that, wow, Neha, you've done everything in advance without me telling you. That's great. And she came and she said, oh, the tomatoes should have been more finely chopped. And you shouldn't have cut the onions in advance. And I thought, okay. And that same day I was reading this book. And I realized that I took that feedback as evaluation. That, you know what, Neha, you don't know these things till now. But actually, it was coaching. She wants me to get better in what I'm doing. Now, it's very important that we know when to differentiate. We know when to know that it is coaching, it's not evaluation. And we stop seeing everything as evaluation. And at times, we might want one form of feedback. So maybe it's important to say, okay, this, I understand this is where it comes from, but can you tell me if I'm going in the right direction? Maybe something like that, where I'm explicitly asking them to, evaluate me, that am I okay where I am? Otherwise, there's this negative self conversation which keeps going on, that maybe I'm not doing it right, or maybe it's not happening right. It may happen with parent-child, it may happen in the corporate organizations. So to get our purposes aligned, if you feel that you are just receiving appreciation, but you want some form of coaching, you want to know exactly that, okay, that's okay, I'm great, but what can I do better? That's we do in Toastmasters, right? We say, yeah, thank you for the generous comments, but please tell me the recommendations. So that's an example of getting our purposes aligned. So yes, I think evaluation is always there, but we have to really know that this is the kind of feedback I'm looking for. And if that's not coming from the other side, maybe from the receiving end, I can take some initiative to get the purposes aligned. Maybe that could help.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Neha. It means there are 3 types of feedback. Number 1 is appreciation, and number 2 is evaluation, and number 3 is coaching. Though at times there might be cross transactions in between. So coming to Toastmaster Gaurav. Toastmaster Gaurav, do you think there is a process by which we can navigate a useful feedback conversation?
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Somendu. Well, I'm sure all of you would agree that feedbacks are crucial conversations. It's only feedback that can take you from here to here. I mean, in Toastmasters, we say that feedback is the breakfast of champions. So definitely, since this is such a crucial conversation, there should be some pointers, some guidelines that you should follow to make it a fruitful exercise. I think, first of all, it is important to ensure that both the feedback receiver and the giver are on the same page. It's important that you know which performance, which project are you discussing, are you reviewing, what is it that the feedback receiver is seeking. As Neha said, maybe all the feedback receiver is seeking is appreciation to uplift his emotions, to uplift his spirits, or maybe he's looking for coaching so that the feedback receiver can look for a promotion in his next tenure. So it's important that both the feedback receiver and giver are on the same page. Otherwise, it may so happen that you are giving them a critical evaluation while all they were looking for is a dose of appreciation to uplift their mood. Once you are on the same page, then there is where the actual action happens, when the actual feedback happens. There's a range of skills that you use here to maybe navigate this channel. Maybe you should use your listening skills, which is again very important, so that both the sides of the parties feel heard. Maybe you should be assertive so that you bring to table that information that only you are privy to. Let's say there's a project where the client was particularly very unhelpful, he was withholding information, and that led to last minute surprises. Now that's something that you might let your reviewer know. Otherwise, he may give you a feedback that was not related to the circumstances on ground. So maybe you should be a little assertive when doing the entire feedback process. There should be the skill of problem solving. So the entire purpose of feedback is to go from here to there, and that means you should use these problem solving skills, use analytical skills, lateral thinking. Both the sides of the party should come up with ideas that can help the feedback receiver to go from where he is to where he want to. So these are some of the skills that you can use during the process of feedback to arrive at the desired outcome. But I think the most important part is the third part. This is where you design a course of action, or maybe say you can say a call to action. What is it that you are going to do now to reach from here to here after all the discussions that you have had? Maybe you can decide upon a new way of doing things, a new technique. Maybe you can set up a future date and a target against which you will review your performance, your work. So this will help you to actually make the entire exercise fruitful and not in futility. Having said that, I also believe that there are some key things that you should keep in mind when giving feedback. First of all, I think it always has to be a two-way street. Feedback cannot be a one-way street where the boss, while he is on a call, just drops in and says, hey, you did wonderful, and he leaves. The employee is left wondering, what is it that he did wonderful? He believes that he is doing 10 jobs out here in this office and he is not appreciated, and now all of a sudden the boss just comes and says he is doing wonderful. What is it that is he is doing wonderful? So it has to be a two-way street where the receiver also gets an opportunity to speak. The other thing is it again has to be very specific. As I said, in the previous example, the boss just said that you have been wonderful. What is it that was wonderful? You have to be very specific. Even if there's some critical evaluation, you need to be very, I think we do this in our Toastmasters wonderfully. Whenever we are doing a speech evaluation, we say that your evaluation has to be very specific. If you say that, hey, Somendu, you did not do wonderfully this time on voice modulation, then you have to cite examples from the speech where voice modulation could have been better. So that's what it means to be specific. You should be specific either about appreciation or about your critical evaluation. The particular aspect which you are referring to. And above all, I think the CRC approach that we follow in Toastmasters, that is very crucial. So if you go on and let your employee, let your child, anyone know that you are bad at X, you are bad at Y, you are bad at Z, and you did not do A good. So that's a string of bad evaluations, bad citations that you are dumping upon him. And obviously it does not do well with his mood. He feels let down, he feels unappreciated. And I think this is something that I've really learned from Toastmasters. CRC approach is a wonderful approach where you sandwich the recommendations between two commendations. And that really kind of uplifts the mood. So when you are developing a speech, you tell them things that he could have done better, but then you again conclude by saying things that he did wonderfully well in his speech. That kind of uplifts his mood and gives and motivates him to come back again. So I think, again, the CRC approach that we learned in Toastmasters helps you wonderfully in executing the entire exercise.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Gaurav. That means any conversation is a two-way exploration. So at times, we need to be a process referee for ourselves. We need to pause. What is the function of a referee? It stops the play, then adjust. So at times, we may need to take that pause and adjust the conversation. We need to diagnose, describe, and proceed in a purposeful way. Now coming to Toastmaster Aruna. Toastmaster Aruna, we all have our own blind spots. We can't see our leaky faces. We can't hear our tone of voice. We are unaware of our big patterns in behavior. Now, so what do you think, what can help us see our own blind spots?
Yes. So human behavior is driven by our own thoughts and feelings. You know, any situation creates certain thoughts in us, and those thoughts create certain feelings, and those feelings lead us to behave in a certain manner. You know, there is a gap in the way we think we present ourselves in front of someone and the way that behavior have an impact on others. You know, what happens, there is an emotional math going on in the larger dynamic. And the way the people judge us and the way we present, there is a difference. There's a huge gap. And I might be a truth teller. I might consider myself to be a truth teller, but others might consider me to be nasty. I might be passionate about my kids, about looking into the nitty-gritties of each and everything of theirs, but others might consider me to be an indulgent, to be an emotional fool, just being after her child. So it's the way we think we are doing things and the way others perceive us. But the good news is that there is a pattern in our behavior. So we can always look into the pattern and bring out the change we want to. So those blind spots, you know what happens? Whenever we do certain things, like we text, we message, our WhatsApp messages all have a pattern. There are huge, like someone, they message in caps, or maybe there are too much of exclamation marks. So those all create an impact and give a message to the other person to judge, to perceive what is the other person wants to convey. So it's not only the message which you write, but the tone of your voice, the facial expression, all acts as leaky spots. And these are the blind spots which you can always take care of. First of all, what you need to do is you have to bring these things into awareness. And you can do this with the help of others, like the feedback we receive in Toastmasters. Like we receive about the tone of our voice or the body language, we can use them as our blind spots. Like as Toastmaster Gaurav had said in the first speech, that he is getting feedback about his tone of voice, body language, but he has not worked. So those are the blind spots on which he can work upon. And next is that we can record ourselves. You know, we just don't like hearing to our recordings, but recording does help to navigate, to know, to bring into awareness about our blind spots. What are the loose, leaky points which we should need to work upon? Then the third is always we can ask ourselves, we can reflect upon what are we doing? What are we getting our way? And patterns always are useful to let us find out our blind spots. We can ask ourselves, where have I heard this before? Are we getting this feedback persistently from family members, maybe in Toastmasters, maybe from other colleagues or friends? So we can work upon those blind spots. So there are the three ways. Like we can get feedback from people, we can record ourselves, and we can reflect upon our behavior. We can ask ourselves by questioning.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Aruna. That means we need honest mirrors in our life. Right. Now, coming to Toastmaster Gaurav. Toastmaster Gaurav, how can we shift ourselves from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset?
So thank you, Somendu, again. So anyone who has ever read even a single self-help book would have surely come across these two terms, fixed mindset and growth mindset. Fixed mindset is the sort of person who thinks that he is either good at something or bad at something. He is born with a certain talent, certain intelligence, and that's his quota for life. That's fixed mindset. And as you can imagine, growth mindset is the direct opposite of this, where you believe that you may not have a certain skill or intelligence, but with hard work, determination, and persistence, you can acquire that skill or that level of intelligence. And naturally, as you can wonder, that feedbacks are important only to a person with a growth mindset. Because if you are a person with a limited thinking who believe that you cannot grow, cannot develop, then feedbacks are moot to you. So if you or someone you know are a person with a fixed mindset, then I think there are a couple of things that you can do to shift from fixed mindset to growth mindset, which actually leads the way, which actually helps you to prosper in life. I think that the first thing that you do is you have to stop making statements like I'm good at ABC or I'm bad at XYZ. These are self-assertive statements that when you repeat over time, create a mental roadblock. You can say they sort of create an identity label, And once it is created, then it's actually very hard to undo this. So you should stop making these self-defeating statements. The second thing that I think you should do to shift from fixed to growth mindset is that you have to admit that you are an imperfect person, just like every other person on this planet. Once you admit that you are imperfect, then you can adopt the feedbacks that you receive in your day-to-day life. So in any person, whether he be a Toastmaster or not, you do receive feedbacks in your life. And these feedbacks can be, as Toastmaster Neha said, it can be coaching, it can be appreciation, or it can be evaluation. Once you admit that you're imperfect, you have the capacity in you to take these feedbacks and apply them in your life so that you can move from imperfection to a little more perfection in your life. The third thing that I think you can do, and this is again, I think the most important of all, is you should hang out with people who have a growth mindset. I'm sure all of you have read this WhatsApp message where it says that you are an average of the people you hang out with. So if you hang out with people who have a growth mindset in their life, then naturally some of that rubs on to you too, and it can help you as well. Now, if you see the three things that I've mentioned, getting rid of self-defeating statements and identity labels, and applying feedback, and hanging out with people who have a growth mindset. I think three of these can be achieved by doing just one thing: Toastmasters. It's a platform that I think delivers wonderfully on this aspect of your life when you want to move from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. If you join Toastmasters, you are essentially saying that I may not be good at public speaking, but I can work on it, and I can give efforts and become better at it. So it's helping you in point number one. And Toastmasters is all about evaluation, coaching, mentoring. It's the pillar, the hallmark of Toastmasters. So it's helping you in point number two. And when you join Toastmasters, if you can see our club, you are in company of some fine people who have a growth mindset. In our club, we have 46 people who want to develop their skills, who want to prosper in their life. That is why they have joined Toastmasters, to learn this wonderful skill. So you are in company of people with growth mindset. So I think Toastmasters is a platform that delivers wonderfully in these three respects to help a person shift from a fixed mindset to a growth mindset. So in one sentence, if I can summarize the magic to help someone shift from a fixed mindset to growth mindset, it's give them a Toastmasters membership.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Gaurav. Such a wonderful way to explain. Now, I request all the listeners to put their questions in the chat box so that we can take up 2 or 3 questions after this one. Now, coming to Toastmaster Aruna. Toastmaster Aruna, you have said that there are 3 triggers: truth triggers, identity trigger, and relationship trigger. And of those, I believe relationship trigger is the most challenging one. I mean, who is the boss at home or at work? Now, what do you think, how we can overcome this relationship trigger?
Yes, doctor, this is one of the most pertinent and important question. Relationship trigger, in every relationship or every interaction, we are influenced or triggered by, not by what is said, but by who is saying that. I want to quote an example. This Friday, my niece got engaged, and we were all busy with preparing with her gifts and all. So while preparing for the whole family was there, and we were preparing for her gifts, arranging things. And she came in between, and she was giving us some feedback that arrange this gift in this manner. So we all got triggered. We are making so much of effort and doing things, and and we are doing for you, and you are coming and giving us this feedback. So was it someone else, we would have taken it otherwise, but it was the niece for whom we were doing. So what thought we had in our mind, that in spite of being switch track, in the conversation. Rather than listening to her, like what she wants, we all were like, you are just ungrateful. So there was a switch track in the conversation. So in relationship, we just forget like about the content, but we focus on the person who is giving us the feedback. So there is always a switch track in the conversation. So first, in a relationship trigger, we need to find out like what is the switch track, what the other person wants to say. So there is no coaching relationship feedback, we just keep our wants, our needs into much focus. Like we want appreciation, we want autonomy. We all have basic needs. We have basic needs and need of approval, need of appreciation, need of autonomy. Like as many of you might have read about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's like the physical needs, the biological needs are the basic needs. And when those needs are met, we get on to the next needs. And those are the appreciation, autonomy, power, self-actualization. So what happens when in any relationship or any dynamics, the needs have to be fulfilled. And then in a conversation, the focus is on meeting our own needs rather than listening to what the other person wants us to convey and what is the need of the other person. So in relationship, the relationship would be smooth and we would be able to accept the feedback if we focus on coaching the other person rather than rather than thinking about ourselves. Like when we focus on the feedback for the betterment of the other person, the relationship would be better and the feedback will be also apt and it will be readily accepted and appreciated by the other person. So this was the question. How can we overcome the trigger?
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Aruna. Now let me take up the question from Toastmaster Avijit. Let me put Neha online. How to bring the feedback receiver or on the same page as the feedback giver? Toastmaster Neha.
Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, Abhijit, for the question. I think the most important thing is to clearly communicate at times, right? Get your purposes aligned. For example, as you know, as we discussed that you may offer this kind of feedback, but I really want, you may offer appreciation, but I really want to know how to improve, which we do at times. So what happens is the most common reason why we are not on the same page, the feedback receiver and giver, is because the giver is giving evaluation, but the receiver just wants some appreciation, or the giver is giving some kind of coaching, but all the receiver wants is some just to know where I really stand right now. For example, in Toastmasters, right, we do that, no, give me recommendations, or we do that, am I doing it fine, am I going in the right direction? So getting your purposes aligned, just letting the receiver know that, this is what I am looking for, can you give me that? And from the letting the giver know, right? And if I'm giving feedback, then probably giving the evaluation first, or separating the evaluation and the coaching, right? You give the evaluation, you let the person know that yes, you're in the right direction, but these are and these are the things where you can do better. Replacing that and with a but, this will also help. And having an overall positive attitude when you're not when logic drives you more than emotion. When there's emotion, then you always say, oh, you're always late, you never give me time, and all those things. Then being on the same page is difficult. When you're specific, when you're positive, when you're on the same page, as in you're aligned, you're giving and receiving the same kind of feedback, then it's easier for the giver and the receiver to really be on the same page.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster
Thank you, Doctor.
Neha. Now let me put Gaurav quickly, Toastmaster Gaurav online. We have another question. Gaurav, any action taken by a receiver? This question is from Toastmaster Astha. Any action taken by the receiver on feedback is feedback in turn for the giver. As feedback givers, what steps can we take to ensure that we don't lose this feedback on the way we give feedback?
Yeah, thank you so much, Toastmaster Somendu and Toastmaster Astha, for this question. So this again reminds me of this common saying that we come across in our day-to-day life, that you can learn something from everyone. There's something to be learned from every person that you meet. Now, I think generally what happens is that when you are the feedback giver and someone is the feedback receiver, there's a misbalance in altitude. Generally, you become superior because you are the feedback giver, and someone becomes junior because he is the feedback receiver. So I think it's very important in part of the feedback giver to be humble, to understand that you can learn something from the other person as well. Generally, when you are superior, you become too, should I say, obstinate or too stubborn, and you refuse to learn from people who are below you. As I said, feedback is a two-way conversation, and the other party also brings something to the table. There can be information only he is privy to, or circumstances, or ground realities that only he's privy to. So the one thing that I can suggest, or that I think is absolutely vital to make sure that the feedback receiver, feedback giver also learns from the process, is that be humble enough to admit that you can also learn something from the other person.
Thank you so much, Toastmaster Gaurav. We have more questions coming up from Toastmaster Ankit as well, but I think the red is already there in the screen. So I shall take up that offline, Toastmaster Ankit. Just to summarize the whole thing, as Toastmaster Gaurav said, pull is more important than the push. And we constantly live in the intersection between our two needs, our desire for learning and our longing for acceptance. And we need a balance somewhere in between. There are three sets of triggers, of which I believe relationship trigger is the most challenging. We need to spot, switch track, and then go for signposting and take one topic at a time. As Toastmaster Gaurav said, that accepting imperfection is the best way to move forward. So today I want to thank all the listeners who have patiently listened to this panel discussion. I also thank my panelists who have painstakingly prepared for this panel discussion over 2.5 months, reading several books, most notably 2 books. One, Thanks for the Feedback by Sheila Hinn and Douglas Stone, and Difficult Conversations from the same authors. Thank you so much. Over to you, Toastmaster.